Hello and welcome to another episode of Laying Down the Lore 40K, a lore podcast in which we aim to separate our Drukhari from our Dark Angels, our Tyranids from our Tau, and our Craft Worlds from our Chaos Marines, and generally ask, what's up with this Warhammer 40K stuff? My name is Ben Crone Barber and I know pretty much fuck all about 40K. Don't know why they're laughing. With me is my co-host Christopher Crowlin Allen.
Hi, Darren.
Who knows absolutely fuck all about 40K.
Yeah.
And my dear brother Darren.
Hello.
Who knows so much about 40K, it's a wonder he has time to do anything else. Over the years, this dichotomy between our levels of understanding became clear, and this series is an attempt to address that ignorance. Some pre-recording giggles slipping in there.
Yeah, a little peek behind the curtain. I'm just about to hit my backup. Now, here we go.
Right, so I hate it when this happens. Like, the pre-recorded conversation leaks into the recording, and then we have to explain.
Let's make Ben contextualize things.
No, we don't. Move on.
Yes, we do. I'm not going to give details. Everybody, before the recording started, we were talking about breasts. That's all we'll say. That's it. There's no more detail.
What are you talking about?
Shut up, Crow.
Anyway.
I just made myself laugh so hard, I've got coffee on my glasses.
Wow. It come out your eyes.
You need to see someone, son.
Because before you can't see at all. Like, isn't that a thing that people can do? They can blow smoke out of their eyes.
I've seen that.
No.
That's a different saying.
No.
No, I think you're right.
Have you blown coffee out of your ears as well?
I saw this. Do you remember? I think it was Penn and Teller, the American magician duo, and one of them snorted a seed or something small up their nose and managed to kind of get it out the inside of their eye or something, because there's some sort of connection there. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen some.
Why?
Is it TGI?
Farewell, libido.
Yeah. Is it TFI Friday, the old show on in the UK with Chris Evans? They got two people on, one who could cry milk and the other who could blow cigarette smoke out of their eye. I was like,
what?
Wow.
Yeah, one person that could cry milk and another person that shot tears out of their nipples. Yeah.
Combined, they were a normal person. I can only imagine, they were to discover that you could do something like that, I don't know, so they took a mouthful of milk, and then somebody told a really funny story or so, cracked a joke, and they went, and it just poof. They tried to contain it, and it just burst out of the next available orifice.
Or maybe it was like a self-defense mechanism. When they're afraid, they shoot. It's like a squid, but milk.
Like a skunk.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Zeech mutation.
Which leads us nicely on, Kral, to supports. Thank you to everyone that supports the show. You guys are great. Exactly. I'll leave you figure that one out while you're cleaning milk off of your eyelids. If you would like to support us, there's a number of ways that you can do that. You can head over to Patreon, where you can sign up for our Discord for just £3 a month and come and have a chat with us. Or you can pay an extra £2 a month and gain access to our bonus show, 40KO'd. I was about to say Chunks of Dar, wrong show. Our bonus show for this is 40KO'd, which is...
And then you said Chunks of Dar, so you can't let yourself down.
Yeah, I just said it anyway.
Which is also, listeners, Chunks of Dar is a euphemism for breasts.
Anyway, we also have merchandise and links to our affiliates. If you're into the hobby, just hit the Quartermaster link in the description and biggity bam, send us all your breasts. I mean money. Also, this episode may include some ads that help us create this content for free. So the easiest way you can support is just letting them play Philly. Just do it. Just you can walk out of the room. Just let it play. Right.
Probably for baby formula. Yep.
Yeah. Fucking hell. Right, crowd, you know what time it is?
Citizen of the Imperium, it's time for frontal lobotomy or bottle in front of me.
Yay!
Boo to a child.
Well,
Boo.
don't you speak about Fiona like that. She is a saint.
Boo.
Right, Crown.
Yes.
What did we talk about last episode that I definitely have questions on?
It was the build up to the Badab War.
Crown, did you just say
Badadan, badadan, badadan.
This is why you're such a great DJ. Your cuts were seamless.
Yeah, exactly, mate. I'm all over it. Like,
Or at least it will be after the edit. Yeah.
Right, Kral. So,
Yeah.
Bad.
What do you want to know, mate? And if I don't know it, it ain't worth knowing.
Name 3 of the
Types of war.
And Badab is not allowed as one of them. No, name 3 of the chapters that were involved in the run-up to the Badab War.
The Astral Claws. Bam! The
Nice.
Mantis Shrimps or the Mantis Claws or something? The Mantis Marines. The Lobster Thermidors. Mantis someone's. And the I want to say Charlemagne. It's not Charlemagne, is it? Come on, Darren. Give me a reassuring nod. I'm on the right tracks here.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. The Charmanders. Yeah.
The Charmanders.
Charmanders.
The Charizards.
The Charizards.
Yeah, you can't
No,
say that.
I do know. Astral Claws definitely, because
Yeah.
it was all about the Astral Claws.
And what did you say? The Mantis?
Something. The Mantis something or other.
Yes.
Mantis Warriors.
We'll take exactly. Yes.
Hey.
Nice.
And there was
Okay,
something
one
with
more.
CH. Chara.
Oh no, they were. I know exactly the one you mean, but they were
weren't
not
those. They
in
weren't
the Badab
involved.
War.
Ah,
The
damn
Charnel
it.
Guard.
The Charnel Guard, thank you. But they weren't part of the
No.
that collective. No, okay, fine.
Well, no, they were, but they weren't in the Badab War. So
Well,
yeah,
did
we'll give
we-
it to him. If we change the question, Ben, to name 3 of the Maelstrom.
You know what, Darren?
Warders,
I think Ben's
Then,
going to
yeah.
give me that.
Yeah, I think you're
Kral,
right.
do you know what? I think you're right.
I love how I can manipulate things. It's great. Yeah.
What a pair you are. Of what I don't know.
Zinger. Name. Randall hasn't provided me any questions. He's fucking useless.
Here's a question for
Uh,
you, Ben. What questions have you got prepared for me on the build-up to the Badab War?
I'll tell you what, right?
Okay,
Let
all right,
me-
Ben. I've got one for you. And this, I'm not reading any notes here. Who is the leader of the Astral Claws? Without looking.
He's Googling. He's on his phone.
Don't.
No, I'm
Or he's-
actually trying to
Cheat.
find the.
Or he's milking
I d-
himself. One of the two.
I.
Correct. It was someone or other Huron.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, Kral. Name 2 of the kind of surrounding systems in the area that the story in the lead up to the start of the Badab War took place in. I'll give you.
Apart from the Badab system itself.
But yeah, and don't look at the parchment that
sector,
Darren's just
yeah.
sent.
Yeah.
The Badab.
I mean,
sector.
it was near the Maelstrom board. The Maelstrom.
The Maelstrom
So
Zone,
that's gotta be-
yes.
Yeah.
Kral, who were the group of, I think they were like traders who basically flagged that the Badab sector was becoming a bad apple to the Imperium.
What? Who grasped them up?
Yeah, who grasped them up.
Which group of traders? Like not
They were
rogue
were they traders? They weren't.
Yeah, they were the rulers of a sector and who got rich off of the trade.
And they were quite wealthy.
I want to say begin with like a C or a K or something.
That's
like that.
right. Yeah.
The Carthan Lords.
The Kralladonians. Yeah.
That's right. The Kralladonians.
Do you know what? It
Or
might
the
as well be.
Carthagins. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Carthagins.
No, I don't know.
The Karthan, not the Carthagins.
Carthagins. That's what happens when you blow smoke out of your eye.
I'm weeping from my nipples as we talk.
Yeah. The Kralthans.
The Kralthans.
You know what, Darren?
and-
Ben's going to give me that.
Well, no, I'm not, because that was only half the question. I asked for 2. What's another one? It's the second part of it is cluster. And that's the second part of it.
It's
not
a
the
horrible
first.
word.
Not cluster.
Clusters, like it sits in the same horrible naming as like moist.
Yeah.
A moist cluster
Is the answer
of albumin. Cluster.
Is the answer honey nut? The honey nut clusters.
Sorry, what was the question? What was the question? Sorry.
Name a second area that was in the Badab sector that was
Endymion cluster.
Nailed it.
Well, you cheating bastard, but I love it. I'm going to give you a point anyway. Well done, mate.
You do
for cheating.
Yeah, okay.
Dar, would you like to ask a question?
What chapter of Space Marines responded to the Carthan Lords' call for assistance?
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
was it the guys that had gone missing for a long time and had just arrived back in the Imperium?
No, but they also existed.
They were also a thing.
Was it one of the ones we already mentioned, or was it the 4th group of Space Marines which we haven't mentioned yet?
It was a 5th group of Space Marines we hadn't mentioned yet, if you're accepting the Charnel Guard as a thing. So the Warders were the Astral Claws, the Charnel Guard, the Lamenters, and the Mantis Warriors. But there was another chapter of Space Marines we mentioned at the end. They had a grudge against.
That's right.
The Astral Claws.
Because the main guy of the Astral Claws was given
Lufgut
the lead. Huron. He was given the lead on a campaign, and
he was. Yeah.
Was this chapter in question actually the from the original Legion? Did they have the same name as one of the original legions?
No.
Bastard. Right, I'll shut up.
Interesting, as a note, this is the one that eventually, in the original lore, became the Legion of the Damned.
Oh. Are they the scully, fiery dudes?
Yes. And you mentioned a key word there in the scully, fiery dudes.
Salamanders.
That's right. It's the dudes chapter.
Fiery Marines. I don't know. Fire badgers. Firehawks.
Firehawks.
Oh, it's pretty close.
But you know what, Chris? Because you didn't make fun of me, I'm going to give you that.
Thank you, buddy. Cool. How am I doing?
Crowd, you got 100%. Yeah,
mate.
It's fucking amazing, mate. Honestly, you're smashing it.
Do you know why?
I'm
Fuck the Inquisition. That's why.
Yeah. Crowd, do you want to know what your percentage is?
What, he's just said 100%.
No, I mean in total, like up.
Oh, okay, fine.
All right, smart arse.
Well, 100% at 100% of this, about 300%.
Is 61%.
Hey, you're 8% away from being nice. Let me just say.
Right. Well, I feel like
that's an utter shambles.
Yeah, man.
And I promise to not forget to write. Well, I promise not to pester Randall for questions before next episode.
You promise not to, or you promise to?
No, I promised to. Yeah, no, I promised to. Yeah. This isn't good.
I think I'm seeing the problem there, Ben, if I'm being completely honest.
Shut up, Dar.
Evident.
Right, Dar, take it away. For God's sake.
I don't want it anymore.
For our listeners on YouTube, at time of record, we're 32 minutes in. I wonder what the tag will say. That is the skip the banter section.
Well, you know, you got to have a bit of foreplay before the main action. You know what I mean? You got to
exactly
warm up.
Slip straight in there, right?
No, mate.
Yeah,
God.
You can't dry dog a bit of lore. It's not how it works.
No. You've tried.
Is that the correct term, dry dog? Have I used that correctly? Or
Raw dog.
Sure.
Raw dog. I'm going to dry dog it. Oh my God.
There's something you didn't think you would say in that way this morning. Oh, raw dog.
Well, let me tell you, me striking out with people in my early 30s, it explains so much. Would you like to come back to my place and dry dog it? What?
I think this guy wants us to come back and have hot dogs at his place. Is everyone keen there?
They're standing there with a bun and I'm just suddenly naked and, I'd run away too. Anyway, moving on. Last episode, which was the intro to, or as I think I called it in the description, the edging episode of the Badab War, which was just an hour and a half of just setup to a punchline, which was, and then the Badab War starts.
The war itself was pretty dull.
Yeah. But the edging was fantastic.
After that much edging, it's almost guaranteed to be a disappointment. You've built it up so much in your mind. I can hear people screaming, "Get on with it!" There. What's a good thing? A wireless.
Hey.
Just like when they're edging. Get on with it!
Oh. Wireless edging.
Oh God, this is. I'm making myself feel a bit crude.
Yes, summary of last episode was Astro Claws being a bit kind of possessive about their section of space, resenting the Imperium, building up their reserves of material, but also expanding their legion or expanding their chapter to 3.5 times the size that they were allowed, and then getting into a trade war with the Carthan Lords of the Carthago sector, resulting in disruption to shipments and denial of Imperial tithes to the Imperium. Does that count as edging? I'm denying you your tithe. Sure.
Only if you say, I'm going to give you the tithe, but I'm denying you the tithe. That's, yeah. If you just don't give it to them, then it's like not turning up.
And then all the tithe arrives at once, and they're just like, oh.
Yeah, well, that's a bit shit.
Do you ever wonder that sometimes our episodes are weird?
Yes.
So,
Yep, 100%.
Ultimately, this led to an Adeptus Mechanicus fleet augmented by the Carthagan Lords, or the Carthan Lords, heading towards Badab to get all of the tithe that was owed, plus the gene seed that the Astral Claws had simply stopped giving to the Mechanicus for quality control, we'll call it.
So they basically just sent the bailiffs around, like when you see like a Channel 5 documentary.
Yeah.
Like,
did they
walk around?
Did they suspect that there was, foul play afoot? Or did they just think it was some sort of administrative error?
Well, they thought it was empire building, which is not an unusual state within the Imperium, given that there are 1 million planetary governors at least. Right, sometimes they get a bit too big for their boots. Ultimately, this fleet was devastated by the forces of the secessionists, leading to the Carthan Lords calling for assistance, and the Firehawks chapter was the first and most eager to get involved because of the grudge that the chapter master, Lazarek, I think his name was Lazarek? Yeah. Had against, what's his name? Huron, yes.
Huron. Huron. You got a turtleneck when you do Huron.
So we now head to back to Karthan, where the Firehawks chapter have arrived and are somewhat known for their volatile temperament. So the Firehawks chapter is a kind of mysterious in terms of its origins, although it is believed to be an Ultramarine successor chapter. They are a fleet-based chapter, and their ships, as their armor, is like a flame job on a 1950s American car. So they've got
cool
red and yellow armor with flames.
They're like rolled up sleeves.
That's
smokes
yeah.
under the top
and
thing.
slick hair.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, and like they know jazz tap.
Yeah. Hey.
And they call everyone Daddy-O. Yes.
Cool out, Daddy-O.
Monday, Tuesday, happy days. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking the chapter master is the Fawns.
Yeah.
They are, as I say, a fleet-based chapter, mostly because they have terrible luck with homeworlds, because they've lost 2 of their original homeworlds. One was what I like to call a nuclear holocaust, and the second was their homeworld was irradiated in some fashion. Mr. Ben?
Why was there a nuclear holocaust? Did they cause it?
It's kind of unspecified at this time.
An unspecified nuclear holocaust.
At this moment of the
There's
podcast,
so many of them, to be honest, that it just borders on the kind of mundane.
It's more of it's an odder day when you don't get...
Sir, emergency. There's been no nuclear holocaust reported today. We should make it a bank holiday. Non-Holocaust. No, non-nuclear Holocaust holiday.
So the Firehawks had used the kind of Carthan capital as a resupply point, the world of Sidon Ultra, which is a great name for a planet. While they were known for their extremely volatile and warlike natures, they were still a chapter in good standing, and in the Carthan Lords making the request, they kind of accepted that it would perhaps be a required temperament to face off against now what was referred to as the Tyrant of Badab. So they began conducting search and destroy missions along the Golgothan wastes in the northeast of the Maelstrom zone. And in one kind of spark that ignited the kind of the war, really, in earnest, one of their ships, the Red Harbinger, entered into the Endymion cluster and was confronted by a fleet of Mantis Warriors. And
Mantis ships are vicious, man.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got nothing else.
Best eyesight in the animal kingdom. Most powerful punch relative to
their size.
They're
not the ones that create small, like, nuclear explosions when they put their claws together. Do you know the ones I mean?
Not nuclear explosions, but...
Well, you know what I mean, like...
And they don't... It's not a pinch, it's a punch. So they're big old claws that they, like, whack crabs with, and they can... It's some sort of sonic kind of...
Sonic
almost
boom!
like a sonic boom.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I swear the temperature
exactly,
gets up to, like, the sun or something, like... Doesn't reach the sun, but it's the same temperature as the sun.
Do you know there's this animal in the sea that creates suns in its claws and fires them out?
It talks to lions.
Yeah, wearing the skin of a shark. Yeah. Anyway,
oh Betty,
the Mantis Warriors demanded that they were going to board the Firehawks vessel, the Red Harbinger. The Firehawks, living up to their reputation, said, in effect, go fuck yourself. And the Mantis Warriors said, no, go fuck yourself. And in a violent boarding action, took the ship,
and they had
boarded the ship, and left only 20 Firehawks living at the end of the battle.
It was generous.
It was a bit generous. So we're talking about the Red Harbinger would have had between 50 to 100 Space Marines aboard if it was a strike cruiser.
Wow.
So with this singular act of boarding madness, that's the moment where a full-scale, hot Marine-on-Marine action campaign began, with drawing in, ultimately, 17 chapters of Space Marines into the battle across both sides. Learning of the fate of the Red Harbinger, the chapter master, and the entire Firehawks chapter, the remainder of the chapter, withdrew from all other sectors of war that they were engaged in and headed straight to the Maelstrom zone. So you had, the Firehawks got a bloody nose, and the chapter master summoned the entire chapter into the Maelstrom zone to begin a kind of punitive raiding campaign. Mr. Chris?
All the while, there's a lot of stuff going in and out and happening in and around the Maelstrom zone. Is it still officially a forbidden area by the Emperor at this point?
No, it had been resettled.
No one listening to him anymore.
Yeah, good callback. It was declared purgatus by the Emperor, but if you'll recall, I beg your pardon, by the administratum, it had been purgatus, as Chris points out, but over the millennia, the sheer volume of resources available within that area meant that it was slowly colonized by humanity,
right, okay,
at the expense of indigenous Xenos populations, which were, in the eyes of the Imperium, quite rightly wiped out.
Classic humankind colonialism approach. Yeah.
If in doubt, mine. Yep. The sheer volume of the kind of Firehawks armada that arrived into the Maelstrom zone also included something akin to a Ramillies class star fort, which is a battle station the size of a city, extremely heavily fortified and heavily armed, and it's one of these battle platforms that, if it parks over a planet that doesn't have kind of state-of-the-art or extremely large amounts of defenses, it now owns that planet. Yeah, it's the colonizing flag of the Firehawks, called the Raptorus Rex.
15-year rule.
No takeies backsies.
Take or death. They rendezvous at the Sagan system, and aided by their Karthan allies, they soon begin launching a series of probing attacks into the Badab sector and the Endymion cluster. So there are, if you're looking at the map, which will be in the show notes, they are attacking both the north and the kind of lower south, kind of southern area of the Maelstrom zone. But by doing so, the kind of escalation in warfare became rapidly untenable. As we had discussed last episode, the Astral Claws and the rest of the warders had spent decades, if not centuries, building up their defenses, and it was like, firing a water pistol at a fortress in some instances. So there was a lot of striking and fading and hit and run tactics. These were not limited to the attacking forces of the Firehawks. The Mantis Warriors especially excelled at hit and run tactics and guerrilla warfare tactics, and they proved good at those tactics, and so it was a kind of a guerrilla on guerrilla warfare. Wait, no, that conjures the wrong image.
You lost me at guerrilla on guerrilla.
It was like the end of the first Predator movie, where they're hunting each other through the jungle. That, but in space. to give you an idea of the kind of cat and mouse game they were playing.
But with less trees.
Mm. Well, with more trees, I guess. You got
and more void.
More void. Using this is where the kind of the Firehawks begin to show their true colors, where using the Karthans as a kind of distracting force to feint against the Astroclaws, the Firehawks struck an agri-world, the agri-world of Iblis.
Oh no, our bananas.
At the end of the Endymion cluster, and decided that they were going to antagonize the Mantis Warriors, kind of try and bring them to bear by causing the largest amount of civilian casualties they could. So they set effectively the entire planet, large, huge swathes of croplands and the kind of minor settlements that were dotted around there were absolutely devastated by the Firehawks, both
what a bunch of cunts.
Both from orbit, but also getting down and dirty and into the planet, much like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator.
Okay.
It's going to be analogy heavy this episode.
Yeah.
Were they allowed to, is annihilating an entire world that's feeding, millions or even billions of civilians in order to take out a couple of traitors or heretics? Is that within their remit? Can they do that? Do they have to let Terra know? Just let you know. Just going to kill.
We're going to commit genocide, but it's for good reason.
But we're going to kill at least 100 Space Marines. Like fair trades.
Yeah, they called us really nasty names, so we're going to kill everyone they love and hold dear.
Yeah. You picked their leader over me, so I'm going to kill all these people to get back at them. Is that right?
Yeah. So the kind of the official line would be no. You're not allowed to destroy the Emperor's planets. Even
but we're just going to look this way and hum to ourselves. Yeah, sure.
It should be pointed out that at this stage, the Imperium still thinks this is a local matter. It's a local war for local people, and thus they don't have an opinion one way or the other as long as the tithes keep being met. As soon as they find out that, tithes are going to be an issue, that's when they start throwing their weight around.
Right. You're going to kill several billion people, but we're still going to get paid, right? Cool. All right.
Yeah.
It's fucking dark.
Imperium of Man.
Bam.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Boo. Yeah.
Because of the Firehawks' reputation, the actual type of attack had been anticipated by the secessionists, and the secessionists themselves had arguably decided that they would sacrifice the planet of Iblis to trap the Firehawks. And as this happened, the Mantis Warriors, as the genocide was ongoing, the Mantis Warriors pinned a significant section of the Firehawks chapter in place with hit and run tactics, while the secessionists were able to draw, meaning that the secessionists were able to draw away a large kind of section of the loyalist forces from the planet of Sagan, which was then attacked by a combined force of the Astroclaws and the Lamenters, which was the fourth chapter of the Warders, and overturned really the kind of imperial rule on that planet, a devastating significant swathes of planetary defense forces. Swabs. They swabbed their way in, elegantly walking. Oh, suits you, sir. Bang. They effectively destroyed the planetary defense forces, the PDFs, and the Karthan troops that were stationed there. Having been given a proper beating, the Firehawks and the Karthan troops now found themselves on Iblis, cut off from supply and now behind enemy lines, forcing the Firehawks to retreat from the system. And as they did so, they gave one final fuck you to the planet and nuked it from orbit.
Wow.
And were able to punch through the kind of secessionist blockade that was around that system that was attempting to pin them in, mostly, as we say, the Mantis Warriors. The Raptorus Rex, the big, huge star fort that served as the kind of home base of the Firehawks, managed to take out a Mars-class battle cruiser as it kind of left the system. And
the Mars class.
The Mars class. We touched on them when we talked about the Imperial Navy. These were the real kind of workhorse battle cruisers of the
chocolate-coated
Imperium. So they have a mix of armaments. So they're able to give huge broadsides to their enemies. They have a very crunchy, nougaty set of launch bays that they can shoot out the chocolate counters of Imperial justice in the shape of ships.
Peanuts. Oh, we're getting into Snicker territory now, aren't we?
Yeah. Well,
Carl, stop rubbing your legs. It was a Snickers class battle cruiser.
And then in came the double-decker class frigates.
Well, you say double-decker. They had two big, huge pairs of Twix-like lances that they could shoot at enemy ships with the laser chocolate-coated goodness. And it had a Nova cannon, which is, the prow of these ships. They either have a ram or a set of torpedo bays, or a Nova cannon, which is this huge boost-like weapon on the front of the gun that fires an enormous shell in the shape of a massive Malteser Easter egg.
And everyone got diabetes. Got it.
And scene. Yeah.
This war is delicious. Could one of these battle cruisers have a ram and a pro cannon?
No, they can have a ram or a pro cannon. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to get that wrong. Fire but sir, we've only got a ram. Or the other way around. They're like, ram that ship. And then they just
fire a ram cannon.
Splat. So they're firing cattle at us. What the fuck?
Prepare the anti-armor bison. Yeah. It was a Mars class battle cruiser is a real feather in the cap. A lot of rogue traders use them because they have a lot of versatile armaments they can use, but also are fitted with squadrons, so they could have landers or fighters and stuff come out. Mr. Ben.
What kind of size of ship are we talking about with a Mars class?
Oh, this is one of those 4 to 5 kilometer ones.
Right.
So
it's pretty large.
Significant.
And how big was the fortress? The Rex something? Raptor
it's about
fortress?
The size of a city.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a small.
So again, 4 to 5 kilometers.
45 kilometers. Yes. Yeah.
45 kilometers.
No.
Yeah. Yikes.
That type of star fort, I'd say, is about 10 to 12 kilometers in diameter.
And it can only be compared to a city because it has a cathedral on it. Because that seems to be the definition of cities in the UK.
Do you know what? Yes. Because it sort of looks like a cathedral. So yes.
Does it? I'm assuming it's that kind of Gothic-y vibe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Festooned with spires and weapons.
Yeah.
Festooned is just a great word.
So this kind of descended the whole sector into a more significant kind of state of warfare. And with the Firehawks being effectively outnumbered 5 or 6 to 1 because of the engorged size of the Astral Claws, they retreated back from the kind of Maelstrom proper, or the Maelstrom zone proper, to its fringes, and put out a further call for reinforcement. And another chapter, the Marines Errant, answered the call and began diverting effectively 6 whole companies. So you now had a chapter and a half on the side of the loyalists, shall we call them, coming into the Maelstrom Zone. Mr. Chris.
Chapter and a half, made up of different chapters. Did I miss that?
No, it's made up of 2 chapters. So you have the Firehawks, and now who committed their entire chapter, and the Marines Errant, who had committed 6 companies. So that is, if you're just looking on paper, that's 1,600 Space Marines coming into the battle, which is a fraction of those that would end up in the war itself. But you have to keep in mind that, given their swollen size, their increased numbers, the Astral Claws chapter alone was double the size, more than double the size of the Loyalist Space Marines coming into the war zone. So the Marines Errant, a fleet-based chapter, so again, not a crusading chapter as such, but a highly mobile chapter. Specialists in marine-on-marine boarding actions. They took up residence in the area around the Pale Sisters, in a region within the Maelstrom Zone, and began really protecting Imperial shipping from the constant raids of the avaricious secessionists, who were trying to obviously get as much resources into their control as possible. The Marines Errant expertly split their forces in an effort to kind of guard against the hit-and-run tactics, the raids of the secessionists, all 3 chapters that were in there at the moment. The real sort of conflict between the loyalists, it became far more complicated, because the Marine Errants were caught between, a desire to defend the Imperium, a desire to protect the imperial tithes, and so the kind of standard process or status quo of the Imperium, and the Firehawks, victory at any price against the forces of Huron. And really, this difficulty was kind of further complicated because the Marines Errant had real sense of loyalty and honor, and had actually fought with the Lamenters chapter in their kind of history. And so, while they weren't going to back down, there was never a victory at all costs between those 2 chapters. Honorable surrender was given to anyone. Forces were allowed to withdraw without being fired on, and so it was kind of, that was infuriating to both sides. Very much like when a couple breaks up and they have they're in a collective group of friends. If those friends talk to each other about stuff, one or both of those sides, one or both of that couple are never happy with the kind of ongoing friendships of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you had that kind of sense of martial honor between a lot of the chapters that get involved.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't just purely on the side of the Marines Errant. It was actually with the Lamenters as well,
yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So they were on there. See, this is the thing. You're caught in a situation where your groups of honorable warriors but who both believe that they're doing the right thing. You see what I mean? They're some of them perhaps more honor bound to do this than anything else, but you're not going to destroy a former ally, kind of who is logically doing what you think they would do or what you would do in that situation.
Is this the first instance of Marines fighting Marines since the heresy that are not Chaos Marines?
I believe so.
Right.
There will have been misunderstandings, and there will have been
the odd genocide.
Yeah, the odd genocide. You know, it's a Tuesday.
Smattering. Genocide Tuesday.
Genocide. That's the worst night at the Black Crag.
But the most popular, bizarrely.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not every week because it takes a while to build up people again to go back to it.
Yeah. The fodder,
the whole civilization. Yeah.
Hey, Space Marine! Had enough of your standard issue power armor holding you back? Does your Mark 7 suit feel more like a Mark 70? At Forge Father's Custom Chapter Mods, we turn your meh into metal! Need extra purity seals? We've got them! Flamethrower wrist attachments? Done! Jetpack turbo boosters for those heresy can't hide from me moments? Say no more! Even chaplains say our upgrades are divinely inspired! Don't just serve the Emperor, serve in style! Visit Forge Fathers today, because in the grim darkness of the far future, there's no such thing as too much Dakar! Serving loyalists, renegades, and probably not Xenos, Forge Fathers Custom Chapter Mods.
Towards the end of that kind of initial year of the battle, the Firehawks and the Carthan Lords are still, continuing to suffer heavy losses because of the incredible defense set up by the secessionists, the Astroclaws and allies, and ultimately it led to the loss of about a dozen worlds of the kind of Imperium bent being taken by the secessionists, and thus the planetary defense forces and the resources of each of those systems were now under the control of the ever-expanding Astroclaws. It was around about that time where several ships started to disappear to kind of a mysterious battleship that was in the area, very much reminiscent of the Tiger Claws. Suddenly appearing within the Maelstrom zone was another chapter that had decided to throw in their lot with the secessionists, and this is the Executioners. Their icon is a kind of a pair of axes, and they are descended from the Imperial Fists as a chapter under the guidance of their very first chapter master, Fafnir Ran. Mr. Chris.
Amongst all these chapters, the Executioners, the Lamenters, the Firehawks, and so on, what's the most positive chapter name?
It's not the Lamenters, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Always.
The Angst Haters.
Yeah.
I believe it's the Updogs.
Yeah. The Positeers.
The
The Positrons.
They're actually really annoying.
It's the
shut up, guys.
It's the doubt benefiters. Yeah.
Sorry, quick question before you go on. Why would an external chapter side with the secessionists. That's a difficult word to say, isn't it? Secessionists.
It is, yes. It's because of these ties of kind of blood and honor that we had kind of mentioned already. So the executioners were responding to the kind of historic partnerships they'd had with some of the Maelstrom warders, but were kind of reluctant allies. So very much the kind of Marines Errant-y Lamenters style thing. They were not out to initially destroy anything, although they did destroy stuff. It was only a company to start with. So they were given token assistance to the secessionists rather than dedicating themselves fully to the battle until later on in the war. So, with all this warfare happening in and around the Maelstrom zone, if you'll recall, a certain planetary governor called Tanit Konig, who was
Panic?
Tanit.
Yes.
Oh, no.
I do remember, yeah, because we were saying that's a fucking terrible name for a leader, isn't it?
Yeah.
Panic!
Well, dial back the sexism, because she is a good qualified leader, Ben. Women can be Imperial governors too.
I didn't know her gender, all right? I didn't.
But now I do. What a bitch.
So the Karthan, she's the head of the kind of Carthan Lords, the Carthago sector. And if you recall, they were already financially bereft because of all the raids and the disruption to the trade within the Maelstrom zone. Having not only called for military assistance from any Space Marine chapter that would help, she now decides, or her and her lords decide that, well, after hearing that the Marines Errant and the executioners had become involved and that the executioners were now on the secessionist side, so further bolstering the difficulty that they would have to face in reconquering or pacifying the area, and decided to take matters into their own hands in terms of the finances. So rather than face the kind of wrath of the administratum, as I believe we now call it, with the loss of their own tithes because of the lack of trade, their own tithes were now found wanting. They decided to go on a kind of harvesting mission so that they could meet their own tithes and kind of drain the resources of nearby worlds, specifically Vinaya and Chimera, the two systems or two close by systems that the secessionists or secessionists, as we now call them, could claim as their own. So they launched yet another ill-fated fleet was sent out into the void from the Carthan Lords, and the secessionist intelligence network were so good, having spent a couple of centuries building up not only their defenses but their kind of spy and intelligent network, that they not only heard about the plan but discovered every single little detail involved in the effort. And a stealth force, which I imagine is a lot of spaceships with those kind of COVID masks on the front, arrived in to kind of take out the fleet before it went through kind of the warp translation, before they jumped into warp space. Mr. Chris,
how big's a stealth force? Like, I'm thinking stealth in 40K is like, just a dozen Mars class battle cruisers.
Yeah,
with the COVID masks.
Yeah, but stealthy ones.
Yeah. Stealthy ones. Yeah.
Stealth class.
Stealth class, enormous battleship.
Yeah.
Well, all they'd have to do is paint the fucking thing black. It's a spaceship.
It's a great point. Yeah, fucking hell. Done.
Camo.
Matte black. Just so it's non-reflective.
No, Vanta black. The blackest black that exists in...
and just A couple of white dots on it. Bam.
Yeah.
Couple of googly eyes.
I was about to say it would look like googly eyes. Yeah.
That would freak you out. Nothing but a pair of googly eyes just coming towards you very slowly.
Oh my God.
In the blackness of space. Is it far away or is it close? I can't tell. I've got no perspective.
So the secessionist force comprised of Astral Claws and Lamenters, kind of Space Marine fleets, and the whole thing is led by Lufgut Huron himself, and the entire kind of convoy was encircled and then taken out one ship at a time, with over half of the fleet being taken as kind of prizes. So they'd raid in, there'd be a boarding action. The Space Marines would take the
hood ornaments.
They'd take the and then wear them around their ships. Yeah. On chains. Again, increasing the size of the secessionist fleet overall. Mr. Chris.
Do they, in all seriousness, do they have what they have on ships? Are they like mast ornaments or something right on the front, where they have like a mermaid or a siren carved into the battering ram or something like that?
Is it a figurehead? Is that what they call?
Oh, yeah, there'd be lots of figureheads and statues of the Emperor, or, depending on which Space Marine chapter, Primarchs or Founders or Heroes of the Imperium would be adorned these massive, I like to call, ships. One of the kind of escorts of the ship, one of the Space Marines, a Marines Errant ship called the Star Jackal, was able to escape the kind of tyrant's amazingly well thought out, googly-eyed stealth ships, and fought its way clear of the actual conflict. Ultimately, they would launch into a pursuit of Mantis Warriors, a Mantis Warrior kind of set of ships, that they ended up on a planet called Bellerophon's Fall. Go on, Chris, how would you pronounce that? Bellerophon.
Bellerophon.
Bellerophon's Fall.
Because you're worth it.
Bellerophon.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, how do you pronounce it? I'm just thinking Bellerophon now. Bellerophon.
Beller.
Beller. Bella.
Ophon.
Bellerophon.
Yeah, Bellerophon.
There you go.
Yeah, like hippopotamus.
Hippopotamus? I can't even say it.
Himalayas.
Oh, my brain is too slow in terms of translation and odd pronunciations. I was trying to think of something funny to say about coffee, but I can't.
You need at least 3 syllables. That's a trick. 3 or 4
syllables. Yeah.
So there you go. Bravo. Syllables.
While all this is happening, the Astral Claws and Firehawks are going at it in terms of combat. They fell on a planet.
Sorry, guys.
Of a planet called the Golgothan Waste, or Golgothan Waste. Golgothan Waste. Yep, you're welcome. With the intention of eliminating the chapter altogether, and the Astral Claws succeeded in inflicting a staggering amount of casualties on the Firehawks, which effectively rendered them useless as a larger fighting force. While this battle was engaged, a kind of war of attrition between the Astral Claws and the Firehawks was continuing, the Marines Errant were drawn in towards all my pronunciations now are fucked up.
I've lost the capacity to read and pronounce.
Bellerophon's Fall by the Mantis Warriors. So the Mantis Warriors led the Marines Errant into effectively a large trap, where the two chapters engaged in kind of brutal combat within the structures of this industrial hive moon. So very much Necromunda-esque style battlescapes being fought over by two chapters that effectively just wanted to destroy each other. So much so that the first and third companies of the Marines Errant were wiped out within what's called the Rust Zones, which I think is like a robot's erogenous zones. I don't know.
But it's just pain when you touch it.
Yeah. Ooh, chafe. Like between the legs, thigh on thigh, kind of.
It's a bit rashy.
One assumes that if it's a rust zone, it's also quite moist. I mean, by definition, it'd have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Does
has
it?
to be,
No, just to oxidize. You don't need moisture for stuff to oxidize.
Oh,
You
yeah.
need oxygen. You dickhead.
I'm not. Is that true? I'm not sure it is.
It is true, yeah.
Is it? Oh, okay. Well done.
Water helps, but water does have oxygen in it.
Well, that's why.
I was, let's be honest, trying to get a robot's erogenous zone kind of banter out of that, but Chris is now
failed.
Chris has just dry botted the whole thing. Yep,
he's just flipped into didactic mode. Like, let's learn with
Didactic.
Kral.
Yeah, didactic. I was literally about to say that. Ultimately, the Marines Errants were effectively decimated in the moon above Bellerophon's fall, and the commander of the Star Jackal, which was the only ship to escape, Lieutenant Commander Navarez, mounted a rescue mission and was able to relieve the kind of besieged survivors of the Marines Errant, but they had been, dealt an absolutely pristine bloody nose by the Mantis Warriors.
Lieutenant Navarez.
Navarez. I beg your
sounds
pardon.
quite dynamic. I bet he's quite dashing. Very dark hair. Maybe a Hispanic kind of look.
I think he might be Hispanic, but he's got a French first name. His first name is Anton.
What, Lieutenant?
Yeah, Lieutenant Anton.
Okay.
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant.
And so, with the kind of already tenuous partnership of the Firehawks and the Marines Errant in place as is, the recrimination in light of the kind of destruction wrought on both chapters at Bellerophon's fall, the partnership or the kind of
the
alliance between the synergy absolutely fell apart. So effectively, the loyalist forces had failed in their mission to bring the secessionist forces to heel, and now the tyrant of Badab controlled a much larger section directly of the Maelstrom
Not
zone.
getting any better for the Imperium, is it?
It's not going any better for the Imperium.
Did they get spanking from the Emperor for failing?
I'm just...
That question was essentially, tell us what happens at the end. Just skip all the story.
Did they all live happily ever after? Did they?
Yeah. Someone ate an apple, someone fell asleep, there were some short space marines, maybe squats, we don't know. Luft got Huron and the 7 squats. You know that famous story?
Yeah.
Please yourselves, apparently. So, it's at this stage that the High Lords of Terra go, listen, what's going on in Badab? And
where?
Who?
Never heard of it.
The escalating conflict prompted a more significant form of action from the High Lords of Terra, who began to view the issue not as a local matter to be handled by the imperial governors of those areas. It was now not a trade war, it was now a security issue. So very much the Homeland Security Act of the Imperium was invoked. And thus the High Lords brought in, I think they sent a convoy of legates. Mr. Chris.
Was that the defining moment when the Imperium was like, we got to get involved now? When basically the Fire Claws were basically defeated, right?
Firehawks.
Firehawks. What did I call them? Fire Claws.
Fire Claws.
And the Astro Hawks.
Isn't that a drink?
The Astral Claws increased their presence and what do you call it? Ownership of the area. It was getting worse, basically. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And the Imperium were like, okay, we can't just turn our gaze away from this now.
Yeah.
Gaze with the
So the short answer is yes. The High Lords of Terra sent out a triumvirate of Imperial legates. So these are the...
What words did you just say?
Imperial legates. Triumvirate, 3. They sent out 3 chaps.
Triumvirate of Legates. It sounds like a dish at a restaurant. And for your a la carte, we have a triumvirate of legates.
And how would you like your legates, sir?
I would like 3 of them.
Yeah, just side by side, please.
What was that in a Black Book show? I would like a tower of soup. Yeah. It's that kind of idea. So the legates included members of both the administratum and the Inquisition, which signaled which signaled the overarching gravity of the situation, and the I have no idea.
Situation, mate.
Situation. They sent out the Australian legates.
Oh, mate.
These legates headed straight to the Maelstrom Zone with the seal of the High Lords of Terra. So this was a definitive case of the mountain coming to Mohammed, where it was, you've gone and fucked up. And we're sending some troubleshooters out to see what the story is.
Some Space Marines with lanyards and passes. Yeah. And like, oh shit, stuff's getting serious now.
It's the most fearsome weapon a Space Marine can arrive with is a clipboard. And that's
an old clicky pen.
Clicky pen.
Yeah. It's more triggering than a shotgun being cocked.
So these guys are literally just coming out to see how fucked up shit is. Are they coming out to assess?
They're coming out to assess.
With guns.
And with guns. So they go through all the reports, they take evidence from as many people involved as possible, and usually loyalists, let's face it. So the Inquisition uncovers really quite extensive evidence of the Astral Claw's misconduct. And that's all it is at this stage, it's just misconduct. And so...
Genocide, misconduct. Going against the Emperor, misconduct. You do one more thing and you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, you see, what's worrying is the genocides didn't even make the top 10 list of the wrongdoings. The big 3 were the hoarding of their gene seed tithes, allegations of legion building, so expanding the size
just allegations.
Of their chapter, and direct attacks on Imperial shipping, thus disrupting trade, the stuff that's required for the Imperium to keep going. So the initial thought of it being a security issue was ratified rather than it being a civil dispute within the sector, between sectors lords. And the ultimate kind of issue was the legates demanded the unconditional surrender of the secessionists. Lufgut, our good friend, the tyrant of Badab, rejected all calls for ceasefire, and this action led to arrest warrants being issued for the chapter masters of the secessionist chapters, which that incident, when the arrest warrants were issued, that's where it became an official rebellion against the rule of the emperor, or against the administratum. I beg your pardon, administratum. Mr. Ben.
So which chapters were currently in the list of secessionists?
The sausages, yes. So we had
the sausages.
The sausages. So we have the Astral Claws, the Lamenters, the Mantis Warriors, and now the Executioners. So it's those 4 chapters. Mr. Chris.
Could you summarize the Lamenters? I haven't heard much about them. What's their kind of style, as it were?
They are a Blood Angels successor chapter. They're structured very similar to the Blood Angels. The yellow armor with a blood. Yes, most Blood Angel successionist chapter. The Blood Angels are kind of pitched as space vampires because they're sort of space vampires, and so the Lamenters is one of their kind of secessionist, or not secessionist, successor chapters. We're going to have fun differentiating between that. It's millions and billions all over again. So they have
secessionists.
Yes. So yes, good vampire pun. So they have a kind of standard 10 company organization, but they also include something called a death company, which is during the Horus Heresy. Hang on, I'm explaining. During the Horus Heresy, when Sanguinius was killed. Yeah, yes, a death company. That's exactly what I said.
Jesus Christ.
As in, what?
During moments of high stress, Blood Angels Space Marine, or of the successor chapters as well, can kind of go into a psychic rage where they relive the last moments of Sanguinius, their Primarch. And once they go down that path, the end result for them is always death. So they're constantly put into the forefront of battles to kind of seek an honourable death.
Kamikaze type approach.
That kind of idea, yeah. So they're always the first into the fray in any combat that includes these.
Once you flick that Sanguinius switch, there's no turning back.
No.
You've got to be sure that, like, now's the time.
There's only one instance I know of where that switch has been unflicked or transcended, and that's with the chief librarian of the Blood Angels called Mephiston. But that's a story for another time.
Mephiston.
Yeah, Mephiston. I beg your pardon. So yes, so we have the Astral Claws, the Lamenters, the Mantis Warriors, the Executioners are now, arrest warrants have been issued for the chapter masters of those forces to bring to bear the kind of justice of the Imperium. So the legates, as part of the kind of issuing of those arrest warrants, authorized the seizure of all secessionist territories, all the resources, and the arrest and prosecution of the leaders, mostly the Astartes leaders, but also they will be looking for imperial governors or planetary leaders as well. And that really kind of solidified the position of the Imperium as to what was happening within the Badab zone. The investigations at Sidon Ultra, if you'll recall, that's the kind of capital of the Carthago system, revealed that that Tanit Koenig, our good friend, our sister from another mister, and her administration in provoking and exacerbating the war. It was really this kind of brinkmanship that the Carthan Lords got involved in, ultimately was decided to be a symptom of staggering arrogance and ambition on the part of these Carthan Lords. And so Tanit, I believe we can call her Tanit, she's a good friend, or was a good friend, and her entire kind of clique of ruling nobles were executed. And as a kind of, you precipitated this war, rather than it being any kind of just element that the Astral Clause could have. So it was a political maneuver to show that it was these guys that did it. The imperial justice system, being as it is, I mean, the legates were accompanied by various members of all the different streams of the Adeptus Terra, including the Arbites. So to kind of offset the disruption to the entire sector by this kind of ambition and stupidity of the Carthan Lords, they decided that the 14 billion inhabitants of Sidon Ultra were condemned to indentured servitude for 6 generations. So it's talk about collective punishment. So an entire planet was turned into slaves, not necessarily servitors, although some would be obviously of a number that big, some would be sent to that. But the planet was turned effectively into a penal colony in the stroke of a pen. So all rights were withdrawn from every single member of the planet, and you had the entire kind of social system of an entire world be flattened down to one level instantly. Yeah, so you had, there would be an amount of time taken to bring this to bear, but you've enslaved, effectively, a population twice our own in our world into
Yikes.
6 generations of servitude. Yeah. So that would be the Arbites and the any kind of Imperial Guard regiments that were accompanying or summoned into things. So what they would most likely have done is just removed the nobility were dead. They were taken care of. They would have extracted the most useful and then rounded up entire cities and moved them into penal camps. Or, you found suddenly that you were working in a hive city's factories where you used to be, I don't know, a librarian or think of another profession, Darren. Quickly.
Primary school teacher.
Yes.
Grocer. Taxidermist.
You're grocer.
This led on to, obviously, sector-wide repercussions from these decisions as the forces of the Adeptus Arbites and the Administratum launched not only the kind of destruction, effectively, of Sidon Ultra, but also began to extract tithes from planets. And there were many enforcement campaigns begun to get what the Imperium was owed from planets within that sector. So despite this initial judgment and the hammer falling on the kind of maelstrom zone by the Imperium, the secessionists just continued unabated. They just did what they want, partying out all night, soft drugs, maybe some booze, that kind of notion. Yeah.
Hard drugs?
No.
Towards the end of the campaign, yeah. It's very rare to start a night with hard drugs. I mean, not unheard of.
Yeah, that's where I went wrong most of the time.
Straight to hard drugs.
He was like the Benjamin Button of a night out.
Yeah, I started on Thursday, guys. Did you all start on Thursday? Okay.
I mean, I asked a guy for a cigarette and I ended up just huffing a cat's anus. I don't know where I went wrong. What's going on? Amsterdam. So, yeah, the staggering repercussions and reparations required by the Imperium really brought the Carthan sector to its knees within a matter of days. And
God, I bet they weren't expecting that, were they? They were like, oh, thank God, the Imperium's here. Everything will go back to normal. Oh, you're all dead. Fuck. Guys, we shouldn't have brought it up. We shouldn't have said that. We should...
With the secessionists' kind of petulant stance that they wouldn't bend the knee, we then see the formation of a larger campaign under the kind of, well, really more at the request of one of the legates, an inquisitor legate named Yardice Frayne.
That's a legate name if I've ever heard
Actual pronunciation, yeah. So she felt that a more significant Space Marine force was required to deal with the secessionist chapters and their forces within the Maelstrom war zone. And so a force under the command of the Red Scorpions, who were a real Bible-thumping, with the Bible being the Codex Astartes chapter. They adhere to every single line of the Codex Astartes.
Fundamentalist approach.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
take it as verboten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they led a further force of 4, including themselves, Space Marine chapters into the Maelstrom war zone, including the Fire Angels, who were a kind of Knights Templar style Astartes force. They're Blade Masters, crusading chapter. The Raptors, who are a successor chapter of the Raven Guard, so they are a stealth chapter who they wear like a camel. They wear a green, or they have green heraldry, and are very focused on infiltration and assassination and hit and run tactics that need to be used in certain campaigns. And the Salamanders, who were one of the original 9 Space Marine legions, who are these hulking, great, charred-skinned warriors from the planet of Nocturne. And even though they only sent a single company, their presence was felt throughout the system because they are not only effective Astartes warriors, but they're great kind of protectors of humanity. They put the defense of the human population of the Imperium ahead sometimes of the immediate needs of the great and the powerful within there. So these 4 chapters, the Red Scorpions, the Salamanders, Raptors, and Fire Angels, are now augmenting the somewhat weary forces of the Firehawks and the Marines Errant, and the overall kind of command of the loyalist Space Marine battle fleet, or force rather, was given to Verent Ortis, who is the chapter masters of the Red Scorpions, whose authority was augmented by Inquisitor Frayne, who had kind of requested the larger force. Mr. Ben.
Is a chapter the direct descendant named chapter of one of the original legions? So I'm assuming that there's still an Ultramarines chapter in the same way that...
Yes.
Yeah, so are they...
All 9 of the original legions have a chapter.
An original chapter. Are they in any way more powerful or capable than descendant chapters?
No, not on the face of it, no. But there's more... How would you say? They seem to be everywhere within the Imperium. The kind of descendants of the 9, or the direct descendants of the 9 legions. They're the ones who have the longest history of supporting the Imperium, and are thus their word carries more weight within the Imperium than a kind of successor chapter. And a lot of successor chapters defer to the chapter of their birth, of their origins, really. And there's many instances of one of the Legion chapters, we'll call it, putting out a call for aid, and all of their successor chapters within a given area would come to their assistance, because they are viewed as the source of their, that's their origins.
Right. Okay, that's cool. So it's a 4 on 6 at the moment. Is that 6, albeit depleted chapters on the loyalist?
Yes, side. But the loyalists are still under strength somewhat because of the growth of the astral claws.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it for this episode. We've covered a third of what I hope to cover in this episode, so I'm looking forward to next episode. We've gone from the rise of the Maelstrom Wardens as a kind of entity, a rebellious entity, to the events that triggered the call for aid from the Carthan Lords, who brought in the Firehawks, who came with their own agenda, obviously, because they had a grudge against Huron. And then the kind of wishy-washy nature of the campaign by the Firehawks and the Marines Errant, and their very kind of fractious relationship, to the declaration of it being an actual rebellion against the Imperium and not just a local issue to be dealt with by the locals. And now there are fleets of Space Marines headed to that area to enforce the arrest warrants by the High Lords of Terra. There we go.
Fantastic.
It's smacks of like Horus behavior, kind of uprising, rebellion, and things like that. Is there a lot of this? The Horus Heresy seems to be kind of the big game-changing event in terms of rebellions against the Imperium.
Yeah.
The Badab War seems quite significant, and I'm guessing, well, the question, are there quite a lot of these uprising, rebellious stories?
Yes, but not of this scale. So you'll get the occasional system or groups of system that will announce they're seceding from the Imperium, but then it could just be as simple as a Vindicar assassin takes out the rebellious governor and suddenly everyone else falls into line. So there's a lot of pruning that the Imperium does before stuff can get to this level. But given the size of the Imperium of Man, sometimes planets do manage to secede, or they're captured by Xenos, like the Tau, and are offered better living conditions, frankly, by the aliens than by the Imperium. But we're now seeing a ramp up again of the Imperium's responses against this kind of rebellion.
Is it?
So a lot of moving parts in this, and the next few episodes are going to be even worse.
Yeah,
better.
I think the thing that really comes across in your description of this is like how grinding the process is. Like there's no action. It's not a huge amount of like kind of action. Well, I imagine there is, but the story as a whole is like, and then this person did this, and then the Imperium were like, it's not great. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm like,
and then 10 generations later, they decide to stand up and do something about it.
Okay. Like, well, let's have a look at this report. It might be significant. And then they send an assessor, and then eventually they declare all-out war. It's like,
we can do it quick, or we can do it right, Ben.
Yeah. Is it really a rebellion until the accountants get involved? It's that kind of.
It's just an inconvenience up until then.
Is it this might be bad, but I when you're like,
no, we've told you they're people now, Ben. You can't talk about them like that.
No, like in relative terms to the heresy, I find, and this isn't to diminish from this story because it is a good story and I am enjoying it, but I do find that the numbers involved are slightly underwhelming when you look at it in comparison to the heresy.
Oh yeah.
You're talking about
Primarch involvement.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking about like superheroes, super beings leading armies of hundreds of thousands, and then
demon princes.
And demon, exactly, and chaos, and then and so like when you're saying like, oh, and then there's this exchange, and it was absolutely brutal, and they wiped out like all of it, and I'm like, yeah, but there's only 1,000 of them.
There's only 1,000 super soldier.
Exactly.
With Mars class freighters. I mean,
when you take
I don't get out of bed for
stuff
out 3 Primarchs. I mean, Jesus.
when you take the heresy out of the picture, this becomes fucking massive. Like because you really appreciate the scale. but when it's in the picture, you're like, okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, it sort of highlights the grind, as you said, I think, the grinding nature of the Imperium. It's just this stuff that is like your day-to-day life, if you're a member of the Badab sector, depending on which side you're on, is either going to be really kind of jingoistic and nationalistic, or it's not. It'll be the, oh God, don't like the direction we're heading in now. Draw your own conclusions as to what country that might represent in this current day's politics. But it's moving swiftly
Every
on.
nation ever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the day in the life episode we did about Necromunda. It's that kind of idea that Space Marines are now not these super soldiers that appear at a moment's notice crusading across the galaxy. They are like generations can pass before even a single member of a planet will encounter a Space Marine. They're so there's only 1 million of them in quotes, and there's roughly 1 million settled systems within the Imperium. So
that's one Marine.
It doesn't leave that much
per system. Yeah.
So
Kral, I'm not sure. I think we may have touched on it last episode, but what do you think the chances are? Would you like to make a bet on whether Chaos gets involved in this war? I think Dar hasn't.
Is always involved, directly or indirectly.
£10? £10?
Do you want to bet cash monies?
Yeah. £10.
Legal tender.
Okay. So heretics, like Chaos heretics, like cultists, Chaos Space Marines, or demons. One of those three.
So heretics, Marines, or demons. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chaos Marines, demons, or Chaos heretics. Will any of those three get involved? Is that the question? That's what we're betting on.
That's the bet.
Oh man. I mean, possibly. I'm going to stick one. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to think it's going to be Chaos Light, this one. No heretics, no demons, no Chaos Marines.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
I need you to do a digital high five to replicate the handshake. There we go. That's done. Right.
Ow.
It is ratified.
Ow, my face.
Well, Dara, thanks for the war episode.
Kill yourself.
But we have got to wrap up. Right, that's all from us. Thank you so much for listening. Details and imagery for the topics we've discussed in this podcast can be found on our website at layingdownthelore.com. We also have all our episodes on there, release schedules, and merchandise. And again, if you want to support the show, you can click on the supporters link, also known as the Quartermaster link, in the description and give us all of your treachery bucks. We'll be back again soon displaying just how little Chris and I know. And until then, goodbye.
Bye.
Nice.
Darren, sign off.
Bye.
Yep.